It was a cold, rainy night. The streets were almost empty. Cars moved slowly as rain hit the windows. People walked fast, holding umbrellas, trying not to get wet. But one woman had no umbrella. Her name was Ella. She stood outside a big fancy hotel. Her clothes were wet. Her hair was stuck to her face. She was holding a small old bag. Her hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from fear, hunger, and sadness. She looked up at the golden hotel sign. It was shining bright. Inside, people were drinking tea, laughing, and sitting in warm chairs. Outside, Ella felt like she didn't belong. Still, she walked in. As soon as she entered, the warm air hit her face. But so did the stares. Guests looked at her from head to toe. Some whispered. Some turned their faces. A man at the bar smirked and said loudly, "Looks like someone brought in a stray cat." Ella ignored him. She walked slowly to the front desk. Her shoes made small wet sounds on the marble floor. The receptionist was a young woman with perfect hair and a fake smile. Ella stood in front of her and spoke softly. "Excuse me, I need a room. Just for one night." The receptionist looked at her clothes, then at her small bag. She didn't even check the computer. She said, "Sorry, no rooms available." Ella blinked. "But I can pay a little. Please. It's raining. I have nowhere to go." The receptionist didn't change her expression. "I'm sorry, ma'am. You'll have to leave." Behind her, a few guests were watching. One couple whispered and giggled. A man took out his phone and clicked a photo. "Homeless girl in the five-star lobby," he joked. Ella felt her heart sink. Her eyes filled with tears, but she tried not to cry. "I just need a place to sleep," she said again. "No," the receptionist replied firmly. "Please leave before I call security." Ella nodded slowly. She turned around and walked back to the door. Outside, the rain was now heavier. The wind pushed her hair into her eyes. Her clothes stuck to her skin. She looked back once. No one followed. No one cared. She stepped out and walked toward the sidewalk. But just then, a black luxury car pulled up in front of the hotel. The door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out, wearing a black coat and shining shoes. His face looked serious, and his eyes searched the entrance. The doorman straightened up quickly. The receptionist looked up from her desk and froze. One guest gasped and whispered, "Is that the mayor?" Yes, it was Mayor James Carter, the same man who had been on the news just last night, the youngest mayor in the city's history, known for his kind heart, known for helping the poor. And right now he looked upset. He walked past the doorman, past the shocked guests, and straight to the front desk. "Was there a woman here?" "About 10 minutes ago. Wet clothes. Small bag. Alone?" he asked firmly. The receptionist's mouth opened, but no words came. "She asked for a room," he added. "Where is she?" I turned her away, sir," the receptionist finally said. She didn't look like a guest. The mayor's eyes darkened. "You turned her away," he repeated, his voice sharp. "She didn't have a booking," the receptionist replied, now nervous. And she looked like someone who needed help. He cut her off. "Do you know her name?" "No, sir." The mayor didn't wait. He turned around and rushed back out into the rain. Everyone in the hotel was silent now. The man at the bar had stopped laughing. The one who took her photo quietly deleted it. Guests walked to the windows and looked outside. The mayor's car doors stayed open. Rain poured down his coat, but he didn't care. He looked left, then right. But Ella was gone, and no one knew where she went. The rain kept falling. Mayor James Carter stood under the hotel porch, staring into the street. His heart was beating fast. His coat was wet. Water dripped from his hair, but he didn't care. He only cared about finding her. "She was just here," he said to himself. "How could you lose her?" He turned to his driver. Check the left side of the block. I'll check the park. Yes, sir. The driver replied quickly and jumped into the car. The mayor walked fast through the rain, eyes scanning every corner. He didn't care that his shoes were ruined. He didn't care about the water running down his back. The only thing on his mind was Ella. Back inside the hotel, the guests were whispering. Did the mayor just come looking for her? Who was that woman? The receptionist stood frozen at the desk. She was still trying to understand what had just happened. The hotel manager came running. "What's going on?" he asked, out of breath. "The mayor came," she said softly. "Okay, and?" He was looking for the woman I turned away." The manager's eyes grew wide. "You did what?" "She didn't look like someone who could pay," she whispered. The manager was furious. "You don't judge a guest by their clothes. If the mayor finds out we humiliated someone important." "She didn't seem important," the receptionist shouted, now scared. But it was too late. The damage was done. Meanwhile, the mayor walked down the sidewalk, calling Ella's name softly. He didn't want to scare her. He didn't want her to run. He checked the benches, the bus stop, and the corners of the nearby park. But Ella was nowhere. His mind raced back to years ago, back to when he had no one. He was just a young man then, jobless, hungry, and alone. No home, no money, no food. It was Ella, the hotel cleaner, who gave him bread and a blanket when no one else cared. She told him, "This world is cold, but don't let your heart freeze." He never forgot those words. And now, years later, he owed her his life. The mayor returned to the hotel after 20 minutes, wet and tired. He walked straight back to the front desk, where the staff stood quietly. The guests watched from their seats. He looked at the receptionist, his eyes burning with disappointment. "You judged her by her clothes," he said. I didn't know," she replied nervously. "You didn't even ask her name. You didn't care if she was cold or hungry. You saw her and decided she was nothing." The manager stepped forward. "Sir, we're deeply sorry." But the mayor raised his hand. "I'm not here for sorry." He took out his phone and called his office. "I want CCTV from every corner near this hotel. We'll find her." "Yes, Mayor," a voice replied. Then he turned back to the people in the lobby. "Every one of you saw her. Some of you laughed. One of you took a photo." The man at the bar looked down in shame. "She once saved me. She didn't ask for anything. Now, when she needed help, you all turned your backs." Nobody said a word. Rain kept tapping on the windows. The sound was the only thing in the room. "I want every hotel employee to go out and search. Check every alley, every corner. She's not just a guest. She's the woman who made me who I am today." The receptionist had tears in her eyes now. "I didn't know." "That's the problem," the mayor said quietly. "We never try to know the people we think are below us." Meanwhile, Ella sat under a small tree in the park nearby. Her clothes were wet. Her shoes were muddy, but her mind was somewhere else. She remembered the face of the receptionist, the laughing guests, the photo. She felt small, invisible. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Why did I even come back to this city?" Then suddenly, a young man came running toward her. He wore a hotel uniform. "Excuse me, ma'am, are you Ella?" he asked, breathing hard. She looked up, surprised. "Yes. Who are you?" "Mayor Carter is looking for you," the man said, smiling. Ella's face changed. "The mayor? Me?" "Yes. He's been searching in the rain. Please come with me." Ella didn't move. She was confused and scared. Why would the mayor look for her? Ella stood still. Rain dripped from her hair. Her clothes were soaked. The young hotel staff member stood in front of her, waiting for her answer. "Did you say, 'The mayor is looking for me'?" she asked again, her voice shaky. "Yes, Mom," the young man said kindly. "He's been searching everywhere. In the rain, on foot, Ella stared at him, confused. Why would a powerful man like Mayor Carter care about her? She was just a woman with no home, no job, and no family left. She had come to this city only because she had no place else to go. Her eyes narrowed. Are you sure it's not a mistake? No, ma'am. He called you by name. Find Ella. That's what he told us. Ella's lips trembled. Her heart was beating fast, but she didn't understand why. Still, something inside her whispered, go with him. She stood up slowly. Her legs were stiff from sitting too long in the cold. The young man offered his arm to help, but she shook her head gently. She was used to doing things alone. They walked together through the park, the sound of wet leaves under their feet. Ella didn't ask more questions. She had too many in her head already. Back at the hotel, the lobby was no longer calm. Hotel staff were running in and out with umbrellas and flashlights. Guests whispered in corners. Some were embarrassed. Some were curious. The mayor stood by the window, arms crossed. His clothes were still wet. He hadn't changed. He didn't care about himself. All he cared about was finding her. Suddenly, the front doors opened. The young staff member walked in, holding the door wide open. And behind him, Ella stepped in, wet, cold, shivering, but standing tall. For a moment, there was silence in the hotel. Everyone stared. And then, the mayor turned around. His eyes landed on her. And he whispered, Ella. Ella looked at him. Her face showed shock. She took a step back. Wait, do I know you? The mayor smiled softly. You helped me once, when I had nothing. Ella's eyes searched his face. Then slowly, her mouth opened. Oh my God, James. He nodded. Yes, James Carter. You used to call me boy with empty pockets. Ella put her hand over her mouth. Years ago, James had been just another boy on the streets. He worked at small shops, washed dishes, and sometimes slept behind the garbage bins. Ella was a cleaner in a cheap motel back then. She saw him one cold night, sitting in the alley, his hands purple from cold. She had handed him a piece of bread and said, You matter, even if the world doesn't see you. That moment had never left him. And now, here he was, mayor of the city, looking her in the eyes. The guests in the hotel were stunned. The same woman they laughed at. The same woman they judged by her clothes. The same woman the receptionist threw out was the reason the mayor was standing in their lobby. James walked closer to her and took off his coat. He gently placed it on her shoulders. I searched every street, he said softly. I thought I lost you. Ella's eyes filled with tears. Why? Why would you care about me? Because you cared about me when no one else did, he replied. Because without your kindness, I would not be standing here today. Ella's lips quivered. No one remembers the cleaner, she whispered. No one sees the poor woman sitting in the rain. I do, James said. I remember everything. She looked down at her old shoes. But look at me now. I have nothing. The mayor smiled warmly. Not anymore. He turned to the manager. Get the best room in this hotel ready, and prepare dinner for Miss Ella. She's not a guest. She's family. The manager nodded quickly. Yes, sir. Right away. The receptionist lowered her head in shame. James walked Ella to a chair and helped her sit down. He sat beside her, holding her hand. I didn't know how to find you, he said. I searched for years. And then today, I saw your face on a camera. I rushed here. I couldn't lose you again. Ella wiped her eyes. Why would a mayor want to find an old cleaner like me? Because not all heroes wear suits, Ella. Some wear aprons, some carry mops, but they save lives. And you saved mine. The hotel lobby was quiet now. Ella sat on a soft chair, wrapped in a warm blanket. Her hands were still shaking, not from the cold, but from confusion. Mayor James Carter sat beside her, watching her closely. He had waited for this moment for years, but now that it had come, he didn't know how to begin. Ella looked at him. "Why now, James? After all these years, why come looking for me?" James took a deep breath. His voice was soft. "Because I need to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago." Ella waited, her heart beating fast. James looked down at his hands. "Do you remember that day at the old motel, when you gave me bread and a blanket?" Ella nodded slowly. "Of course, you looked like you hadn't eaten for days." James smiled sadly. "That day, I had lost everything. My parents had died. I had no job. I had slept in the streets for 2 nights." "You were just a boy," Ella whispered. "I was broken," James said. "But your words, they saved me. You said, 'This world is cold, but don't let your heart freeze.' I never forgot that." He paused, then looked her in the eyes. "But Ella, that's not the full story." Ella frowned. "What do you mean?" James sat up straighter. "That day, after you gave me food, I made a decision. I decided to fight. I decided I would change my life. You were the first person who saw value in me." Ella's eyes filled with tears. "But I didn't just become mayor because of hard work," James continued. "There's something else, something I've kept hidden." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small old envelope. It was brown, torn at the edges, and had Ella's name written on it in faded ink. She stared at it, shocked. That's mine," she said quietly. James nodded. "Yes, I kept it all these years." He handed it to her gently. Ella opened the envelope with shaky hands. Inside was a small photo. It showed a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. On the back, something was written. "If you ever find him, tell him I never stopped loving him." Ella gasped. Her hands covered her mouth. Her eyes went wide. "I gave that photo away a long time ago," she whispered. "It was the last thing I had of my child." James took her hand again. His voice cracked. "Ella, I think you already know what I'm about to say." She stared at him, her body trembling. "No, it can't be." "It is," he whispered. "I'm your son." The room around them disappeared. Ella didn't hear the sounds of guests or the rain outside. All she could hear was her heartbeat, loud, heavy, full of disbelief. She stared at his face now, the shape of his nose, the deep brown eyes, the slight curve of his smile. It was all there. Pieces of her past, hidden in the man sitting in front of her. She whispered, "You were taken from me at birth." James nodded, his voice low. "They said you were too poor to raise me. They lied. They said you ran away." Tears rolled down Ella's cheeks. "I searched for you for years. I went to shelters, hospitals, even police. But no one helped. They said I should forget and move on. I didn't know until I was 18, James said. "A social worker gave me this photo. She said my mother left it behind in her fight to keep me." Ella sobbed quietly now, her whole body shaking. "And all this time, we were so close," she cried. "I became mayor because I wanted to help people like you," James said. "But deep inside, I also wanted to find you. I promised myself, if I ever found the woman in that photo, I'd bring her home." Ella reached forward, touching his face gently. "You grew up to be kind and brave. And I am who I am because of you," James whispered. Suddenly, the hotel manager stepped forward. "Sir, your room is ready." James turned to him. "She'll stay in the top suite. And please send up some hot soup." "Yes, Mayor." He turned to Ella. "You'll stay here as long as you want, or you can come live with me. Wherever you go, I'll be with you now." Ella looked around the hotel, so grand, so full of people who had once looked down on her. And now, the most powerful man in the city had called her mother. The rain had stopped, but inside the hotel, the storm of whispers had just begun. Guests were talking, Staff members stared. The woman they had laughed at just hours ago was now sitting beside the mayor. And not just that, she was his mother. Ella sat quietly in the grand suite. It was the first time in years she had felt warmth, not just from the soft blanket wrapped around her, but from the arms of her own son. James had gone downstairs for a meeting, but he promised to return soon. As she looked around the room, she couldn't believe her eyes. Soft carpets, golden lamps, a view of the entire city. She had spent nights sleeping on cold benches. Now she was in the highest room of the tallest hotel. And yet, her heart felt heavy. So many years had been lost. So many lies had been told. And suddenly, a knock came at the door. Ella turned. A hotel worker stood outside. "Ma'am, someone is asking to see you." "Who is it?" she asked. But the worker only stepped aside. And then, a woman appeared, dressed in a green sweater, carrying a red umbrella, and wearing a face Ella hadn't seen in almost 30 years. Her heart dropped. "Clara." The woman smiled weakly. "Hello, Ella." Ella stood up slowly. You were the nurse at the hospital." Clara nodded. "Yes, I was there, the day they took your baby." Ella's hands trembled. "Why are you here now?" Clara took a deep breath. "Because I couldn't stay silent anymore. I saw your face on the news. They said the mayor found his mother. I knew it was you. I came to tell you the truth." Ella swallowed hard. "What truth?" Clara stepped forward. Her voice shook. "You were never supposed to lose your child, Ella. You fought for him. You cried. You screamed. But someone paid the hospital to take him from you." "Paid?" Ella gasped. "Who would do that?" Clara looked down. "Your late husband's family. They were rich, powerful. They thought you were too poor. They believed James would have a better life without you." Ella's legs gave way, and she sank into the chair. "All this time, I thought I failed him. I thought it was my fault." Clara's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't. I kept the truth hidden because I was afraid. But seeing you now, I couldn't live with the guilt." Ella covered her face with her hands. "They stole my child and left me in the dark." Clara nodded. "But James found you. He chose you. That means everything." Ella whispered, "He thinks I left him." "Tell him the truth," Clara said. "He deserves to know the kind of mother he truly had." Just then, the door opened again. Mayor James walked in, holding a tray of tea and bread. He paused when he saw Clara. His eyes narrowed. "Who is this?" Ella stood slowly. "James, this is Clara. She was there when they took you away." James stared at Clara. His jaw clenched. "You knew where my mother was all these years." Clara nodded, guilt in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, sir. I was young. I had no power. But I kept a copy of something, just in case." She handed him a small folder. James opened it. Inside was a hospital file. It showed Ella's full name, her signature, her fights, her legal battle to keep her baby. Tears rolled down James's cheeks. "You never gave up on me," he whispered. Ella stepped closer. "I never did. I thought I lost you. But I prayed you were safe." James dropped the file and hugged her tight. The hug was long, full of tears and silence. "I'm proud to be your son," he whispered. Ella smiled through her tears. "And I'm proud to call you mine." Downstairs, the receptionist watched the news on his phone. The headline read, "Mayor reunites with long-lost mother. A story of pain, power, and love." He sighed, his face full of regret. Moments later, he knocked on Ella's door. She opened it slowly. "I'm sorry," he said, "for how I treated you earlier." Ella looked at him kindly. "Sometimes life teaches us through shame." He nodded and handed her a card. "This is for you. You're welcome here anytime." As night fell, Ella and James sat by the window, watching the city lights. No more lies. No more pain. Just a mother and son, finally together. And outside, it started to rain again. But this time, Ella wasn't alone. She was home. The next morning, Ella woke up in soft white sheets. Sunlight filled the suite, shining through golden curtains. For a moment, she forgot everything. The rain, the cold streets, the night outside the hotel when the receptionist turned her away. Then she turned her head and saw a news report playing on the big TV. From beggar to mayor's mother, the city reacts. Her heart skipped a beat. The screen showed clips of her, wet and tired, standing outside the hotel. Then it switched to the images of her hugging James. Her face, her tears, her story, everywhere. Ella sat up quickly. A soft knock came at the door. James entered, holding 2 cups of coffee. He smiled. "Morning, Mom." She smiled back, still surprised by that word, Mom. But before she could speak, the door swung open again. This time, it was James's assistant, looking nervous. "Sir, the press is outside. A lot of them." James looked calm. "I expected this. But they're shouting. Some are saying ugly things." Ella stood, confused. "Ugly things." James sighed. "Some people think this is a lie. They say we're doing this for attention." "But why?" Ella asked. "We didn't ask for this." He nodded. "The world isn't always kind, Mom. But we don't have to hide anymore." Within hours, the hotel was surrounded. Cameras, reporters, flashing lights. Everyone wanted a piece of the story. Some said Ella was a hero. Others said she was a scam. One woman on TV shouted, "She's acting." No real mother would leave her child. Ella watched the screen silently. Her hands shook. James turned it off. "I don't care what they say," he told her. "I know the truth." She looked at him. "But what if it hurts your job? You're the mayor." He smiled. "I'm also your son, and that matters more." Later that day, James held a press conference. The room was full. Cameras rolled. Reporters waited with sharp pens and sharper words. James stood tall behind the podium. "Good evening. I am here not as a mayor today, but as a son." Whispers filled the room. James continued, "You've all seen the pictures, the videos. But what you haven't seen is the pain behind them." He paused. "My mother, Ella, did not abandon me. She fought to keep me. She was lied to, cheated, and left with nothing. And yet, she never gave up." Ella sat quietly in the front row, tears in her eyes. James went on. "She lived through storms, hunger, and heartbreak. But today, she stands beside me, strong, brave, and finally, free." The room fell silent. A few cameras dropped. One reporter stood up and clapped. Then another, and another. Soon, the whole room echoed with applause. Ella looked around, shocked. They weren't judging anymore. They were respecting her. But not everyone was happy. That night, Ella received a message. A letter with no name. Just a few words. "Stay away from the mayor, or next time, you won't be lucky." Ella's hands trembled as she showed it to James. His face turned serious. "I'll handle this. You're safe now." But deep inside, Ella felt the fear return. The world had changed, but danger still hid in the shadows. A few days later, she walked down the street with James. People looked at her differently now. Some smiled, some whispered, some nodded with respect. A young girl walked up, holding her mom's hand. "Are you really the mayor's mommy?" the girl asked shyly. Ella smiled and knelt down. "Yes, sweetheart, I am." The girl gave her a flower. "You're very pretty," she said. Ella's eyes filled with tears again, not because of pain, but because, for the first time in years, she felt seen. That night, she stood by the window of James's home. The city lights shone like stars. So much had changed. But one thing was clear. Her story had just begun. Weeks had passed since the world discovered who Ella really was. The media storm had calmed. The hotel scandal was old news. But Ella's life was forever changed. She no longer walked the streets with her head down. She stood tall now, not just as the mayor's mother, but as a woman with a voice the world was finally listening to. One morning, as the sun rose over the city, Ella stood in front of a small building. It had broken windows, a rusty door, and dust everywhere. James stood beside her. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes, this place will become something new." And so it began. Ella used her savings, what little she had. James helped with the rest. They cleaned the building, painted the walls, replaced the windows, and 3 weeks later, the Hope House opened its doors. It was a shelter, a warm place for women who had nowhere to go. Just like Ella once did. The first night, only one woman showed up. Her name was Maria. She was bruised, tired, and scared. Ella welcomed her with a smile. "Come in, dear. You're safe here." Maria cried in her arms. The next night, 2 more came. Then 4. Then 10. Soon, the house was full of women, children, and soft laughter. The rooms that were once cold and dark were now filled with light, food, and hope. Ella began to speak at schools. She told her story in churches. She gave interviews, not to be famous, but to be heard. She told people about hunger, about pain, about being ignored just because she looked poor. And every time she spoke, hearts opened. One young girl at a school raised her hand after Ella's talk. "Were you scared when no one helped you?" she asked. Ella smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart, I was. But now I know, even scared people can be brave." Then one day, Ella received a letter. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was from Clara, the nurse who had revealed the truth. The letter read, "Dear Ella, I watched your interview on TV. You've become everything I hoped you'd be. You are healing the world in a way I never could. Forgive me again. And thank you for using your pain to bring others peace." Ella held the letter to her heart. She whispered, "Thank you for helping me find my son." But not everyone had forgiven so easily. The receptionist from the hotel, Peter, watched Ella's shelter grow in popularity. He felt guilt eating him from the inside. One evening, he walked to the Hope House. He knocked softly. Ella opened the door. Peter looked nervous. "Do you remember me?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm sorry. Truly. That day, I judged you." Ella didn't speak for a moment. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." Peter looked surprised. "You're letting me in?" he asked. Ella smiled. "You're not the same man anymore. Everyone deserves a second chance." Months passed. The Hope House opened a second branch, then a third. Volunteers joined. Donations came in. And people who had once walked past Ella like she was invisible now stopped her to say, "You changed my life." One rainy afternoon, Ella stood under an umbrella beside James. They watched as a new building sign was lifted. Ella's Center for the Forgotten. Tears filled her eyes. "You did it," James whispered. Ella shook her head softly. "We did it." He hugged her close. "No," he said. "You did more than anyone ever expected. You didn't just survive. Mom, you made the world better." Ella looked at the sky, the same sky that had once poured rain on her while people laughed. Now, it seemed to smile. Months turned into a year. Ella's name was now known in every corner of the city. People didn't just know her as the mayor's mother anymore. They called her something else now. A hero. But Ella didn't see herself that way. She still wore simple clothes, still helped clean the shelter every morning, still sat with new women each night, holding their hands when they cried. But outside her small world, something much bigger had started. One day, a letter came from a girl named Hannah. She lived in a village far away. The letter read, "Dear Miss Ella, I saw your video on the internet. My mom was like you. She left when I was small, and people said bad things about her. But now I think, maybe she was hurting too. Thank you for telling your story. Now I want to find her." Ella folded the letter gently. She looked at James and whispered, "We're not just helping people here, we're helping people everywhere." James nodded. "You gave them hope, Mom. That's something even I couldn't do with politics." The mayor's office invited Ella to speak at a special event, Voices That Changed Lives. It was held at the Grand City Hall. Big lights, red carpets, news reporters, famous faces. Ella felt nervous in her simple dress. James held her hand. "You belong here." She stood at the microphone. Her voice shook at first, then grew stronger. "I once slept on benches. I begged in the rain. I was ignored, forgotten. But I'm here today, not because I was strong, but because someone gave me a chance to stand again. We all need that chance. Let's give it to each other." The hall erupted in applause. Even people in the back stood up. Some cried. Ella looked out at the crowd. So many faces. And this time, no one was laughing at her. After the event, she received an invitation from another city, then another country. Everyone wanted her to speak. Not because she was rich, not because she was famous, but because her pain and her strength spoke to the world. But one evening, as she returned home, she saw something that made her heart stop. An envelope. No name, no address, just one line. "You're not done paying." James read it too. His face turned dark. "Whoever's doing this, we'll find them." But Ella shook her head. "Let them be angry. I won't stop helping others." That night, she sat by her window again. She stared at the moon and whispered to herself, "Even if some people still hate me, I'll keep going, because someone out there still needs help, just like I once did." The next morning, she returned to the shelter. A young woman sat outside with a baby in her arms. She looked scared, alone, just like Ella had once been. Ella knelt beside her. "Come inside," she said. "We'll figure it out together." The woman cried, and Ella smiled gently, like a mother who had learned one simple truth. Even the smallest act of love can become someone's second chance at life.